Welcome to Three Devs and a Maybe, the podcast series for beginner web developers and general web enthusiasts. Now, introducing your show hosts, Michael Budd, Fraser Hart, Lewis Keynes, and Ed Mann.
Hi everyone, and welcome to another exciting and thrilling episode of Three Devs and a Maybe. I am joined by my usual co-host, Ed, the Player Man.
Hello, building this podcast up. I like it.
Yeah, exactly. And Fraser Hart.
How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm all good. How are you guys? We should do this in order. Ed. Oh yeah, you all right? You had a good week?
Oh, are you talking to me? I thought, oh, this is awkward.
Sorry, I jumped the gun there. You go ahead.
No, it's fine. Go on.
I'm good, man. Yeah.
Yeah.
Last 2 days traveling back from London have been insane. Damn trains. But
Is that starting to really get on
oh
your nerves?
no. It's more the fact like people deciding just to like make bomb threats and stuff as they do. I'm sure Fraser will fill you in like on the Thursday's adventures coming back. But no, it's been a really good week, and it'll be interesting. I've got quite a few links to kind of talk about and some stuff, so it'll be an interesting pod, cool. I think.
Yeah. Also, Fraser, I saw you were at a book signing or something.
Yeah, this is kind of related to what Ed was just talking about. I was trying to get to a book signing, and then there was a security. I was getting on the train from Sevenoaks up to London. It's like a 25-minute journey after work. And kind of on the train, like pottering away to London, just outside London Bridge Station, and then all of a sudden the train stops. And I think nothing of it because it happens every now and again. And then the kind of the bing bongs for, when they do the announcements like ding dong, like that kind of thing. That happened a couple of times, but nobody spoke. And then it happened again. Or we were still stationary. And then about 10 minutes later, it came on again and said, "Oh, there's security at London Bridge, and the whole station has been evacuated by armed police." So I was like, "Oh, that's a little bit interesting." So I got on Twitter.
Just a little bit interesting.
Yeah, a little bit interesting. So bear in mind that we're like 200, 300 metres off of London Bridge Station at this stage. I got on Twitter, and it turned out that someone had been making threats on a train and stuff, saying it was on September the 11th as well. So whether or not that had anything to do with his threats. So the armed police turned up and evacuated the station. So I was sat there for about an hour until we actually managed to get into London Bridge, and just managed to catch the last half an hour of the book signing, which was all right.
Oh man, yeah, because I think the UK terror alert level was increased, wasn't it? Like in the last week, I think.
It's the next level up is
high,
severe, isn't it? That actually has been so it's kind of scary.
Bloody terrorists.
Yeah, angry.
Yeah, how's the C# going?
I've not actually touched it this week. A couple of the guys have been out of the office, so I've been kind of taking over other stuff that they were working on, and we've had sites going out and stuff. So I think I've probably spent 2 hours on it this week, and the rest of it's just been on PHP and Laravel and stuff.
It's been nice to get back to that.
Oh, I love it. It's so nice. Yeah. Like, I'm really not enjoying, I say I'm not enjoying it. It's frustrating kind of like when you've got quite a tight deadline to do something.
Yeah.
And obviously it makes it even more frustrating when you don't get to work on it. But when there's such a tight deadline and you kind of, you're stressing,
especially when you know
what you're supposed to be doing.
Yeah, you could do it a lot quicker in PHP, right?
Definitely, yeah. But I think once it'll be one of these things, like I'll get like the kind of the yes moment, and then I guess from there on it'll all be easy sailing. But still kind of struggling away with it. And I think I've got that to look forward to next week. So
boom.
Yeah, and I've had a weekend full of freelance as well this weekend. So it's been a full on one.
Can't get away from coding, just can't get away.
I know. I've actually enjoyed it I've really enjoyed it this weekend because I sat there thinking. Obviously you wake up in the morning, you're like, oh God, I've got to write some more code, and it's my weekend. But the last 2 days, I've really, really enjoyed the work. To be honest with you, it's not been doing anything out of the ordinary, but it's nice being able to do things my own way. Obviously, because it's freelance work, so at the end of the day, I'm the only one that I have to answer to. So it's nice to be able to do things the way I want and with the tools I want.
What have you been using then?
Just using Silverstripe. And just using Silverstripe and CodeKit, and it's just nice working on the Mac as well, like having the workflow that I enjoy rather than have to do it all through
Windows.
Through Windows, I don't know if you saw, I was setting up Grunt on Windows. Well, not on Windows, but on an Apache server, so I could get the kind of the nice workflow into my work environment. So that's been a bit of a bit of an interesting one, but got there in the end.
Nice. Going back to the Twitter thing, isn't it crazy now that we all literally just go to Twitter for anything that's instantly happened? You'll just get the hashtag, like London Bridge it was, and you'll find you'll get the late. It's amazing. Like, it happens.
There's like people on the trains and stuff. And there was a guy on the train that the threat was made on, and he was tweeting. So I was getting like these pictures of what was going on inside that train, and then there was people on the station like putting out pictures of all these armed police still on the station.
Absolutely insane.
Awesome.
You just
really
you
cool.
Can't like get away from anything, can you? Like, you
that's
know,
the thing, yeah. Because it was something like that. Wasn't that the big kind of the big break-in moment for Twitter, because the plane went down in the Hudson River in the US,
that was it,
and then that was like the first big one where everyone found out about this without the use of a news agency or something, wasn't it?
I think Twitter's a fad. You know, I mean, Twitter's going to die in like at least a week. You know.
Yeah.
How about
when it first came out, all the resistance, but it's like, well, I don't want to do that. It's just kind of like, it's just bragging about what you're doing.
Yeah. It's like, I don't need to know when you went to the toilet, you know?
Yeah, and
140 characters.
Really hooked into it. Yeah, it's awesome. And you, Mickey, have you had a good week?
Not too bad, to be honest with you. It's one of those weeks where I couldn't really tell you what I did. It was kind of like lots of different projects, really. But I'm always amazed, like listening to you. You seem to like really get into the freelance work, and it's not such of a chore for you. I've been doing it all this weekend as well, and I hate it. Yeah. I don't think I've ever done a freelance project where I've enjoyed it, to be honest with you.
Really?
I just obsess over things, and like I've got a big chunk of code which I must have rewritten about 3 times. Like, I don't know. I think that's probably part of my problem, is I just obsess too much over it. But I don't know. I don't think I've ever done anything where I've quoted the right amount either. Yes. I always feel like I should have quoted more.
But that's the hardest part, though, isn't it?
That's the thing. You always get the guilt when you're actually putting the quote together. You think, I should charge X amount, and then you're like, no, I can't charge that. Oh my god, that's horrific. How can I charge that? And then you end up like
so
out of guilt halving your quote, and then the original quote wouldn't have been enough anyway.
You should have doubled the original quote, and you're like,
no. Yeah, well, that's I've read numerous times. Like, when you go on Reddit and stuff, and Reddit web dev, and quite often you'll get someone who's just started out freelancing, and they'll put a post up saying, I've just started freelancing, haven't got a clue what I should be charging. And then like the general consensus is always like from multiple people, whatever you think you should charge, double it and then double it again.
I think that is a really good bit of advice, actually. Yeah, I think if you stick to that rule, that works pretty well, and that is what I've done actually. Shall I tell you guys a little bit about what I've done actually? Because I was going to talk a little bit more.
Project that you're doing.
Yeah, so basically it was a couple of bits of work, but the second bit is definitely the bulk, and that's this chap wants an instant messenger type thing within the browser, like what Facebook's got.
Yeah.
So I think. And obviously in last week's podcast I shamelessly asked for people for ideas on like open source solutions, but anyway I've sort of gone at it in my own way, and I've used a combination of things, but obviously I know Ed knows, and I think I mentioned to you guys that I started off using Node a little bit, but I found that a little bit tricky then integrating that into my PHP application, so I ended up using WebSockets and using a PHP library called Ratchet, which I think, obviously if you've done that kind of thing, is quite famous. It's quite a popular one. So I've been using that, which makes it very, very easy, I have to say. But basically the idea behind it is, and for anyone, this is probably just like sucking lemons for a lot of people who listen to this, but basically like in the old days, and I think I've read that even Facebook did it this way, originally with their chat, is they use long polling or reverse Ajax, I think it's also known as, whereas literally what they would do is literally every couple of seconds they would hit the server with a request to see if any new messages have been received. So it's a really, really painful way of doing it. You can imagine like something in the scale of Facebook. If they'd have kept it like that, you would have had huge server problems. Well, maybe not with their setup, but so it's not really scalable. So the better way of doing it is with WebSockets. You've got this constant open connection where literally as soon as something hits the server lets you know and gives you something back. You don't have to do that check. So there's no set timeout every 2 seconds with jQuery to do an Ajax request or anything like that. Yep. So it's really, really cool. It's really impressive. And it's working really well. And what Ratchet does is takes away a lot of the kind of complicated syntax away. So literally, all you end up with really is one PHP class, which implements an interface, and you end up with like 4 compulsory methods, and that's about it. So it does make it really easy. But then there's a couple of things like the client wanted something where, like, with Facebook, you can see when a user's typing. Oh, so yeah, I got that working the other day, but again, it's probably something that's going to need to be refactored. But I've basically got like a on key up event listener, which is just checking. So yeah, it's working well. I've got like a proof of concept working pretty well, and it all needs to be styled up. But essentially, most of it's done now, to be fair.
That's cool.
Yeah, and playing with WebSockets has been really cool. It's not something I've done before. Yeah, very, very cool. I've really enjoyed it, to be honest with you. But like I say, I'm terrible at quoting for things. So I probably should have quoted double for this. So, but yeah, I'm hoping eventually I'm going to open source it, and if anyone wants to use it, they can do. So
that is very nice of you.
Thank you. Yeah. So that is basically my week a nutshell. So,
it's interesting because with long polling, there's another way I think other people I think you've got like the constantly hitting the server type thing. Yeah. You've also got this. What happens is the actual browser keeps the connection open. Like, it loads up a page, so it goes and requests for a page.
Yeah.
But the actual page itself is, I think it like sets itself content type to stream or something. So it doesn't close the connection. So it will constantly be updating. Yeah. So it will push some bits of data. But you'll constantly got this. What happens sometimes, you'll see that your browser's constantly got the little, loading up sign, spinny thing. Yeah. Because what's happening is it's still saying, well, I'm still getting data.
Yeah.
When are you going to stop giving me data until you say stop data? So, I mean, they are they're not workarounds, but they are a good implementation. Well, not good implementations.
And that's scalable, is it? Or
yeah, I suppose, because I think the problem is stuff like I think it's stuff like Apache, which requires that you have a thread for each request. Not really, but stuff like Nginx, which just like says, oh, if you're not doing anything with me, I can still I'll reuse this. So it just uses one thread and uses event-based stuff. So I think that is better, but WebSockets is definitely the way to go. I mean, that's what it's implemented for.
Very, very cool. Yeah. I just realised I said the expression "sucking lemons" when the expression is "sucking eggs." Right. This is
I've never heard that. I've never heard that saying before. I thought you were going to go with the reference putting lemons in your eyes, and I thought, well, that would be from a night out where you...
You know what? It was like squeezing lemons in my eyes. I'm going to use that expression.
But you enjoy doing that, so I don't quite understand how, that...
And on both occasions, you did it voluntarily as well. It wasn't something that was suggested
and you did it when no one was looking as well. So, to be honest, that's a null and void.
I'm not sure if it's classed as voluntary, like when you've had so much alcohol that you can't think straight anymore.
So the alcohol is to blame.
Yeah. So, Ed, anything from your working week you wanted to talk about? Anything new you've done? Or?
So there's a couple of things, actually. So at work we use something called New Relic. New Relic, and there's a free version of it which I've started using. I'll put it in the show. I'll put it in the Skype. So it's newrelic.com, and essentially what it is it's like stats. So it provides how much memory you're using, how much CPU you're using, how much bandwidth you're using. It also hooks into PHP applications as well, so it'll work out how much PHP, what's happening in PHP, if there's been any errors, etc., like that. And it's very cool because you can then look back on stuff like saying, oh, there was a problem at this time, or my server's kind of struggling at this time, and stuff like that. The free account, I think, only gives you, like 3 days history. But if you get more, if you pay for it, you actually get like a lot longer. Even you can look back years on your server, and it's really easy to set up, but it's really good. And I really just think install it on your server, and just look. What I've done now is I've put it stored on my server, and I'm just going to look through it, every couple of days just to make sure and see what's going on.
So is that the kind of information you get from the command line, but they've made a really nice kind of nice interface for you to
I suppose, but it's also logging, so it provides you over time as well, so it's a bit of a ball ache doing it yourself, and this way it's like a service that you can do. You can also get it on your phone and stuff, which is quite nice, and it just provides you with that extra information, because when you've got hunting down a bug or something and you've had some problems, and really one of the things at this work that I've kind of invested in as a philosophy is you can't have enough stats for like information. Because when a bug happens, you want that information. You need to know and want to know what's going on and what happened at that time. So the more information you have, the better you can actually, kind of replay that bug and work out what's the problem. So I really am a big fan of New Relic.
Yeah.
Another thing, actually, is quite a funny one. So good old Git and Git rebasing. I don't know, have you lot had any experiencing with rebasing in Git?
Okay, so I read the whole manual on Git, like the one you get from the Git.
Did you really?
Yes, I did.
Wow.
Which was a painful document to read.
Dedication.
But I remember reading about rebasing, and it was...
Don't do this, pretty much.
It was like a... Yeah.
So I think when you start to learn rebasing, you kind of get rebase happy. And
does it remove like all your branches and stuff?
No, it rewrites history.
Right, okay.
So the idea of it is that, so say you've got your commits, so I do, a couple of commits and stuff, and the idea of a good commit is it's specific to that thing, got a good title. There's a couple of blog posts out there how to write good titles and how to write, what a commit should be. And sometimes you'll find that maybe you'll do a commit and you'll do another commit on top of that, and you'll be like, well, actually, these two things could be together, really. Or this one overrides that and I don't need to use that anymore, especially if you're doing a feature. So when you've done a feature branch and you want to merge it into master. So what you then do is the idea is you use something called a rebase, and you can do an interactive rebase. And what that does is it actually changes history. So with Git, each commit is a SHA hash. I think I've told you that. Yeah. So each commit is SHA hash. And that SHA hash is based on, to make it so it's actually very good at being like, there's been a mistake, it's based on, its parent and stuff like that. So if you change one of these hashes, it changes the hashes for every single commit after that as well.
Right.
So that's okay if you're working on your own, because, you're not changing. Now, the trouble is that I started my builder, like I was just doing small, little changes, so I could do it myself. But then I started working with someone else. And I still did some force, because what you have to do is force push it, and I did some rebasing. And doing some rebasing changes history. So obviously when they pull it back down, they're like, whoa, what's happened? The whole history's changed, and Git kind of goes a bit crazy. You can get yourself out of it. But the way I've kind of gone about it now is to definitely each Git commit you do, make it specific. Make it as specific as you want, and also write a really good title, because... especially in a feature, so you draw all these commits and stuff and just mount them up. It doesn't matter. Go commit happy. Really doesn't matter. Just don't rebase when you're working with someone else until the end. So when at the end, what you'll do is you two will both sit down and then you'll work out and you'll provide, so what we were able to do, we had I think I did 40, 45 commits, and we were able to get it down to about 7 or 8 commits that were specific,
right?
And when it was really good, and that's the way I should do it, because I'm quite kind of trigger happy where I'm like, well, I can clean these up now and stuff. But you can do that if you're on your own, but you are asking for disaster. And another thing is kind of rebasing other people's commits, because one thing I realized was if you do git rebase and then -i, and normally what you do is head and then you do the little tilde and you'll say how many git commits back you want to do. I didn't realize that any commit, I thought it would only change the commits that you've said to change, but actually it changes all the ones on there, and it makes you think that you've rewrote them. So some of the commits on this branch was me rebasing another person's commit, which was quite fun. So it looked really weird. So in the end, we had to cherry pick, and the cherry pick is literally taking that commit that you've done and actually just putting it on another branch and cherry picking my commits on top of the onto the actual base branch that I wanted it to be on. So Git is awesome. It's a really simple idea.
Do you feel like your knowledge of Git has infinitely increased since working there?
Massively. Having to use it. I mean, I started off initially using Tower and stuff at work, and now I'm trying to slowly transition onto the terminal, because I do still feel the terminal is probably the best way. I mean, it still is the best, and actually it feels more secure because you're safe. I know what the commands are doing. And it is weird when you first start off with Git, but really once you get into it, it makes so much sense. Another thing I've got, and this is a really good one, and I think you're going to have to borrow this book or buy this book.
Kama Sutra.
It's not the Kama Sutra. So what it is called Modernizing Legacy Applications in PHP. This was actually, there was a talk given by this guy, I think his name's Paul Jones, and it was called, it was like that when I got here, Steps Toward Modernizing a Legacy Codebase.
It sounds vaguely familiar. So this is retrospectively legacy code.
Well, the code that you've got, I mean PHP code that's include hell, and stuff like include driven development or something. And
spaghetti
it was actually
code.
And spaghetti, and he was on that podcast, the one where we had Bo, and he was talking about his pattern, which is kind of an update on MVC called Action Domain Responder. And I highly recommend, actually, I can't do it justice, so I'll put it in the show notes, the actual podcast on that, and it's very interesting. But his book that I'm going to buy this week is Modernizing Legacy Applications in PHP, and it goes through step by step ways to get achieved. Like, so simply having a rewrite sometimes isn't the way forward, because you can't just stop. Say you've got this application that's working, you can't just say, okay, well, let's just halt development on that and let's just rewrite the whole thing from scratch, because this one needs features and stuff, and everyone's feature happy. So what we want to do is the idea is then instead is to refactor, short refactoring, so it doesn't feel as nice for the developer. But what this book then does, it kind of gives you step by step saying, okay, so this is, how you would add an autoloader to your spaghetti code. This is how you add dependency injection to your spaghetti code. And eventually, how your unit tests, eventually you'll be able to, with the code that you've got, this include how, that with small steps, you'll be able to actually go through and actually make something that's testable, up to date, uses the latest things, being able to, test it in the right way. And also, develop in the right way.
You know what? That's really interesting. But I mean, that's something that we're trying to do at work with one of our projects. And the issue we've got, I've done exactly the same thing, like brought in like a SPL also register, and obviously brought in a lot more kind of class-based code. But I'm reluctant to say it's OO code because it's really not. And until I can get to the point where, say, like everything is driven through one file, and then
because you want the front controller. Yep.
Exactly. Until I can get to that point, I wouldn't call it an OO project. No. And I think doing that is massively difficult. It'd be interesting to see if he does that in the book.
He does. Yeah. I mean, but he does it. I honestly recommend you buy this book, man, because he does it step by step. When he was talking about this, I was like, this is ideal for people who have to deal with legacy code, done, because before, people did, this stuff in the PHP world specifically, where you do have loads of includes and you do just kind of, I
mean, how would you go about that if you had like 100, like files of procedural code or whatever?
This goes through, this tells you, this really is like that type of book for it.
That's interesting.
So
okay.
Definitely recommend that.
One for the list, yeah.
One for the list indeed. And then another one, so test-driven design, or no, not test-driven design, test-driven development, sorry.
TDD,
TDD. So I mean, my background is I work with you guys, and then I worked on my own, and I worked on my own for a bit, freelance and stuff. So, during the TDD stuff, I kind of did it myself, and my philosophy was really, look, I don't see the point in. Well, I don't see.
And we have this recorded on podcast.
You do. We do.
I don't. Yeah.
Well, I don't see the point in testing. I said
behavior-driven development, right? That was your old attitude.
Well, no, because they're both the same. This is what I'm going to say. Like, it's quite funny.
Okay.
So,
all right.
I believe that you could do it after the fact. Like as long as you do when you do your commit, you do your you do your feature or you do your bug fix. You're right. Well, hopefully your bug fix. There's already a test for it, but maybe you have to change the test. You do a refactor. You change the test or something. You do it afterwards. Working here, when I worked on this feature, I actually did it the TDD way, working with someone who's had experience in it, and it was a breath of fresh air. It really was quite amazing. So, but one thing he kind of got me onto was this video, and I'll put this in the show notes as well, and it's called, from Ian Cooper, and it's called TDD, Where Did It All Go Wrong? Because I think our problem with TDD is we think we have to unit test everything, and we assume that a unit is a class. So we're saying, okay, with that class, we're going to test, everything that class does. And what we end up then doing is, because it has to be tested in isolation, in quotes, we mock everything. Mocking is the idea that, you're faking these things, you're building them up, because you want to test that the behavior is working in them and stuff like that. Well, you'll mock them, and there's another thing, you add dummies and stuff, you add these fakes in pretty much for it. And that gets that's very brittle, because once you've changed the implementation again, the underlying implementation, it will break the test, and people get really annoyed. And they're like, well, I've got more problem dealing with my test than I do actually dealing with the code itself, so they'll stop. And I think that's one thing where he he was actually going back to Kent Beck's book, the original book, and saying, look, Kent Beck didn't say that. He said that, a unit is a unit of code is, a unit in itself, that it can be comprised of many classes, but it's a unit of functionality. Something doing one, it's a one unit of functionality. Task. So you can test that, in isolation. That should be tested. So you shouldn't have to mock everything. Things that should be mocked maybe are, your database layer, when you're bringing that in, or the file system. But you shouldn't have to mock everything, and you shouldn't mock everything, because it's not actually then testing anything. It's just testing the mocks, which is completely a joke. So he goes through this in this video, and it's a breath. It really is eye-opening, and it does kind of turn you on to actually TDD does sound quite cool then, because it does make sense in that way. But it now opens up a other host of things where doing it in this TDD way, where Kayvan was making these things, and there's so many different types of. So you have mocks, fakes, stubs, dummies, and all these things, and they're all used in different ways, and spies and stuff like that. For actually testing these things, and there's different objects that you use that you maybe implement the interface, that you're testing. So you don't want to test that thing per se. You just want to test that it actually triggers something on that. So you'll use a spy on that or something. And it's really interesting. Like I can't do it justice. I've got some links I'll put in the show notes and stuff, but I really kind of opening up, kind of this idea, but dealing with big programs and dealing with big software, and that, tests are invaluable, and the types of tests you use,
I guess the downside of what you were just talking about, and like say one task kind of exists over like 5 different classes that, come together to make this one task, is then say someone refactors one of those classes. You shouldn't
ever test to an implementation. You should test to you should test to like a boundary. So they have this idea. It's called the hexagonal architecture or something. So your boundaries. So you test the boundary of where it hits, not the implementation. Because as you say, you're right. You're very much right. Is that it will break. So you're testing the, that it does it, from the outside, not from the inside. Maybe there is like an algorithm or something that's really, important and complex. You can test that in isolation. That's fine, but that test will break a lot easier, because of, but you shouldn't be testing everything in isolation. It should be the boundaries that are tested. And that's really cool.
Can I just ask, just out of curiosity, just segueing completely here, but with your new workplace and stuff, and obviously you're doing things now the way they do it, are they fans of like the singleton pattern or the factory pattern, or what's their kind of ethos?
Well, design patterns are like anything, aren't they? Like I think.
Do you got a whole mixture, or is it like?
Yeah, you use what you use.
The one for the right job.
It was interesting because I think a factory pattern is actually it shows you've got a bad design or something. Or no, an abstract factory shows you've got a bad design or something. So a factory of factories and stuff like that.
Factories of factories, yeah.
Factories of factories of factories, etc. So it is quite interesting, like hearing that and stuff. But I think it's similar to like. Like we, say, we're going to use PHP for the job, but we're developers and we're going to use what tools we need.
The right tool for the right job.
I think we get kind of design pattern happy sometimes, where we really want to use that design pattern. It's like, I really want to use a strategy here, even though it probably makes no sense to use a strategy pattern. I'm going to use it, and it's like, no, do it the simple way. Keep it clean. Keep it simple.
Yeah, I was talking to my friend Nick, and he said he can always see like. Sometimes in like code base, you'll see that someone started using like the singleton pattern over and over. You can tell they've just learned it and they're so excited and they've just used it everywhere.
Oh, dear.
I was thinking, that's me. Yeah.
Well, no, because you're happy to use it. You're like, it's like this cool shiny thing, isn't it? It's like, I'm going to use it.
But then people say it's not OO, and
Well, it serves a purpose. I think people kind of get very angry. It's hard to mock. It's hard to test.
Yeah.
But
sorry to interrupt your flow there.
No, it's fine. But so they, you use what you need to use. I think the things that I've another thing actually from this video series was that we've got this whole other emphasis on BDD, which is behavioural driven development.
Yes.
Actually, in Ken Beck's book, he wasn't talking of testing. It is actually behaviour. You're testing that that's the thing. So it's the boundary, but it's the behaviour of that that unit you're testing, not how it makes it, but the behaviour of how it makes it. Yeah. And it's funny, look, he goes back to the book and says, look, he was actually saying this back, 10, 15 years ago now.
Yeah.
Already. So it's funny how we've got these extra things that have been layered on. But I don't know if you're like me. I've not actually ever read the Kent Beck version of the book. I've read other people's versions of the book and their interpretations. And it's funny how things can change, like Chinese whispers, where, something changes over time. Yeah. It's funny going back to the source and being like, well, actually, he said that already.
Like I say, the only thing I listened to that whole debate, and like when he said basically, look, I'm not saying you have to use it. I'm just saying this is the way I do it. And he was like, he learned as a kid, and that was the way he learned to do it.
Yeah, exactly.
It's crazy how people get wound up about it. It's like, use it if you want to use it. Don't if you don't.
I think another thing is I think people become religious to things, and I think it's like a language. It's like people come, oh yeah, I love PHP, or I love Python, I love Scala, or I love Clojure and stuff. Well, you can, but don't get too obsessed with anything. Like, things are going to change. I think people become too kind of religious over things. Like it's like their favorite football team or something. Where it's like, well, you're going to change this.
Yeah. Don't preach too much that your way is right.
Because you'll be found out in a year's time that you were wrong. But I think people then try and twist it into that they're right. Do you know what I mean? Like, But one of the final things on the geeky talk is active record and data mapper, and these are actually patterns. So these are patterns of design. That were found in Patterns Enterprise Application. No, what was it called? It was called Patterns of Enterprise Application Architecture in Martin Fowler's book. Do you know what the difference between active record and data mapper is?
No.
Because I had no idea either. I was like, there's a different, like, what I thought, we all use active record, like things like Propel, Eloquent. CodeNight's one was kind of active record, but not really. Like, Ruby's one and stuff like that. It was really interesting because, they're both. So the idea of both of them is to persist data, in an object-oriented way. So an active record, though, it encompasses both the responsibility of the behavior of that thing. So say like a user, what the user can do, but also how to persist the user as well. So, like you'll make a user, you'll set its name, to Michael, and its surname to Bud, and then you'll save it, and you'll call a method on that, and normally that user class will extend, Eloquent, or extend like, a base ORM, class that's used for that active record, and you can query on it, etc. like that. But the trouble is that's breaking the solid principles, or it's breaking the first one massively, because you're binding, two single responsibilities, the persistence and the behavior into two. And what you'll then end up, and I've always had this with using active records, and you always see it everywhere, is you'll get God classes, because you will get classes that are just huge, because the responsibility, it's the responsibility of that, etc. like that, you'll just put it in. So the idea, another one is, and it's funny because they both came into the book from Martin Fowler. It's called data mapper, and in the PHP world, it's called Doctrine, and it's Doctrine 2. So Doctrine 1, I think, used the active record, and that's what gets it confusing, because I always thought Doctrine's the same, like as everything else we use active record, but Doctrine 2 uses something called data mapping. The idea here is you split them out, so you have these pretty much not dumb objects, but the behavior classes, which provide like the user and stuff, and they're literally just bog standard classes, like PHP classes objects. You handle those, and then you'll have something called an entity, like I think it's I can't remember what it's called, like in Doctrine, but it's this other class that you use, and it's this other thing, it's peer, I think, and you'll pass in saying, okay, can you please persist this object, and that object knows how to persist to whatever data store, maybe XML, maybe normally relational data, a relational database, how to persist it. So you're not meshing the two in, to the same thing. You've got your behavior in the user. You probably want to spread that out a bit as well, and then the complexity of actually persisting that is stored in another class. And also things like that are quite cool, because in the case of active record and stuff, when you click, when you do these actions on active record, normally what happens is they happen instantaneously. You'll update the name, maybe it'll persist it, it'll do that immediately. What you can do with this is you can do a load of different things, deal with a lot of different object trees and stuff like that, object maps. Maybe there's like, your user's got roles, blah, 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 or going all crazy and stuff. And at the end of what you do with this is you'll do a method called flush or something like that. And what that then does is it does something called a unit of work, which is another pattern in his book, which is it will actually build, obviously now it knows the best way of actually persisting that to the database.
Yeah.
Because it's able to say, well, you only did this, you try and change that twice, or I only need to do it this once and stuff like that. And it will do it in a much better transaction, which is a lot nicer. So it's both kind of, it just makes sense. Like, it was crazy. I was thinking, how have I not done this before? Like everyone should be using data mapping. So that was another cool kind of thing this week. So I've just been yabbing on for a long, long time. So I'll let you guys.
That's quite okay.
I actually do. So I've got another two. Well, I've got 4 links that I have to show you. So we all know that the new iPhone came out this week, and the keynote was awesome. And at the end, there was a band called U2. Now,
Never heard of
it.
I know. Well, exactly, because that's actually linking on. So if you go to a website called whoisyou2.com, you'll see the tweets of people saying, because what happened is their album came onto, because it was iCloud,
completely
wasn't it?
free.
Yeah, they just put it onto everyone's. Didn't they? Put
Very
it onto
cool.
everyone's phone?
Hilarious.
Is that right?
Yep, that's it.
Yeah.
Because people on their tweets like, who are this U2 and why are they on my phone? It's hilarious. So people don't know
Oh,
who
you're
U2
kidding
are,
me.
which is kind of sad. I'm thinking, now, am I old now?
That makes me feel old. Yeah, definitely.
No, these people must know. Like they're just
their
messing
tweets,
around.
I wouldn't read their tweets out loud. They're quite rude, but some people definitely don't know who U2 are. But I think it was quite weird of Apple to do that. That is weird. You know,
Well,
like,
I think
it
maybe
is,
it was to
yeah.
compete with like like Android. They got like a Jay-Z album, didn't they? It was
I did
huge.
what?
I never got a free. I don't really like Jay-Z anyway. I want my free
but I want
Jay-Z
my,
album.
yeah, exactly. It's like, I don't like it,
Yeah,
but I still
I'd
want
have
it.
deleted
Where
it
do I get
straight
that
away.
from?
But I don't know. I think it's like a limited time thing. But yeah, it was huge at the time. Like I think Android struck this huge deal to have this Jay-Z album. Yeah, I think there was like a limited amount of downloads, but yeah, I remember people at work got it. So I think it's to compete with that, and obviously Apple's got a huge like long-term relationship with U2, haven't they? And
Yeah,
they used to be in all their ads and stuff. So yeah, so what did you guys think of that? Actually, if we can spend a little
The iPhone,
few minutes on
the iPhone, and
Yeah,
the
I
Apple
didn't
Watch.
watch. Yeah, I didn't watch the keynote. I saw bits of the keynote. But the iPhone didn't really excite me. But the watch I thought was sweet, like really good. Because I agree.
Yeah.
Have you seen the Moto 360? That's
No.
Oh, what's that?
Or it's coming. It's Motorola's like new Android watch, and it looks really smart. And I kind of looked down and I got a little bit excited by it. But then having seen the Apple Watch, like it does look, it looks phenomenal. I really want one, but obviously
Really
I've got
does,
an Android, so yeah, it wouldn't be much use for me. Because I've been thinking, like in the last 6 months, I've been kind of having my eye on getting myself like a GPS watch just so I can take it when I go.
Oh, good
running or
timing!
biking or
Good
something.
timing.
And then I was just about to spend a silly amount of money on a GPS watch, and then all these kind of good smartwatches started getting announced, and now I'm all confused because I don't know what I want to do.
Is it
It's sort of
$350 or something? I think
yeah.
it
I
says.
think
So I guess
something
we'll
like
get it for 350 quid.
Yeah, that's how they do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
but it does look phenomenal. Like it looks really cool, and yeah, I want one. But I don't know.
agree.
I still kind of think that it might be a little bit in its infancy.
I think
in terms of
if you buy
features
it,
and stuff.
if you buy the first version, you always know you're kind of the beta tester, aren't you?
Yeah,
For
yeah,
stuff,
yeah.
you know. But then you also get the street cred of saying I was there at the beginning, you know.
And who can wait for the second generation? You know, like
Exactly.
yeah.
People,
But-
you know.
I didn't think I'd be interested. I thought it was quite a gimmicky device. I was like, no, I'm not really interested. And I saw the video and I was like, I'm getting
Oh, it
this.
looks so cool.
It's annoying.
Yeah, 'cause I've not even worn a watch for
That's what I was
going
gonna
to
say.
7 or 8 years.
I'm on one
But I
for
want
years.
one.
Yeah,
Yeah.
same. Yeah, whatever price, I'm getting it.
But
Yeah,
I love it because when it first got released on I think it was the Thursday, wasn't it? I was like,
Yeah.
I think that was when the keynote. I was like, oh, this is a bit, you know, I wasn't going to. But the last couple of days, it's kind of like I've been looking on the website and I'm like, this actually looks quite cool, you know, and I'm like, oh, you know, yeah, maybe, yeah. So you kind of are swaying the sides. I mean,
Definitely.
the iPhone 6, I don't like the curves, but I'm sure I'll get used to that. I don't like the fact that I'm amazed that Apple actually did. I mean, I know they need to for like the Asian markets and stuff, but like get a bigger size phone. Like, you know, both of them are bigger. It's quite crazy.
yeah.
I don't know whether it's going to be too big. You know, I don't want to know.
Yeah, for me, I like the size as it is, but yeah, I know like loads of Android users like.
Yeah, but they're
constantly
Android
want-
users, you know. They can just bugger off. No, joking.
But I mean, wasn't the 6 the one that Steve Jobs was apparently working on? So
I have no.
or was that the 5? I think he was like one
Because there
phone
was one a
ahead of
couple
what.
of years. A couple of years after he died, there was still
I know that
Yeah.
Tim Cook. He was really happy with the Apple Watch because this was his first kind of baby. You know, his one that he's done from the start. So
Yeah, I think this was a huge keynote for Apple. Actually, I think this was the one that people were like, "How are they going to survive?" After
well,
Steve
because they got
Jobs?
this FUD, didn't they? You know, it's like, oh, you know, what's happening with Apple? They're falling, and it's like, wow, pressure's on.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
But they did knock it out of the park.
I think they did. Yeah, 100%.
And actually, leading on with because iOS 8 obviously is coming out soon.
Yeah, what are
and
the big changes? I
there
didn't
doesn't
really-
seem to be anything big on iOS.
Well,
does
if you go to popkey.co,
Popkey.co.
you'll see the most important change that you're able to do now with the iPhone or the iOS.
You say hop key as in
no,
H-O-P?
P-O-P.
Oh, hop key. Gotcha.
GIF keyboard.
Yeah, why not? You know, you can have custom keyboards. Man. Now you can have a GIF keyboard.
That's pretty cool.
It's quite, I mean, you know, everyone need their memes, you know?
So this is something that my Android friends were saying, oh yeah, we've had this for years.
Yeah, well, you know what?
Cool. I didn't know about that. Let me see.
So funny.
Key. Is it called PopKey on Android as well?
I'm not sure, actually, but I just thought it was hilarious. But I mean, the couple of things with iOS 8 is that now you can use, well, Swift is a big thing. You know, the alternative language. And Swift 1 was released 1.0 finally. There was a couple of days. It was quite funny because I was looking through it throughout. I think I remember Dale Rees talking about it initially when he came on. And I was looking, like, I started playing around with it and stuff. Like, my way of learning a language is normally like doing algorithms in it and stuff. Like, my Hello World is doing a merge sort because why not? And so I was looking around on it and stuff, and it's funny that, like, you know, like, it was different releases, like different betas of Xcode, then said, oh yeah, now we have like access modifiers. So in the first ones, you didn't have private, public, you know, so it was quite hilarious how it changed over time. But finally, we've got 1.0 Swift, and Swift is a lovely looking language. But yeah, so that kind of is awesome. But other than that, I mean, I can't think of anything that kind of I remember that.
So you've had a play with Swift now, then?
Oh yeah, love it. Yeah, very cool.
Yeah,
very nice. Looking forward to hopefully playing around with it because we're going to be building an app starting next week, maybe. So that'd be interesting. But no matter what, I'll be. There was another thing we did that got me because he started implementing this radix tree or tray,
right?
Because they call it a tray after retrieve, and I was like, well, I want to implement this, so I did that in PHP, and now I'm going to implement it in Swift as well. You can see it on my GitHub. If you're sad, you can look at my GitHub for it. But yeah, so that was quite fun. And actually, leading on from that, there is a link I'll give you, and it's so one nice. I mean, algorithms are quite cool because, you know, obviously you explaining them can be quite hard though. I found, and I'll put it in my show notes. Paste, and this is a link that I found on Hacker News a couple of weeks back, and it is amazing. It's visualization. It's the best. I mean, a lot of people have tried visualizations of algorithms, but this to me is the best, and it visualizes these algorithms and how they work. And it's a great way of learning. You know, I mean, I was thinking because obviously you're going back to uni soon. That you know, maybe some of these, you know, you'll be doing these algorithms. What better place than actually getting a visual representation of how they actually are doing their work?
I have to say, like, when I was doing some algorithms last year, even with visual representation, I sometimes found the visual more confusing than the code representation.
So definitely don't look at. Oh no, the code. The code's brilliant. I mean, it's normally for me, it's the explanation they do, like on wikis and stuff.
It's kind of like explaining like node exploration and all that kind of thing, like where it goes and how it comes. I always get confused by that kind of stuff. Like, but this looks pretty good actually.
It is really nice. And another link actually, another visualization, but it's more kind of. Oh, it's just awesome. It's called the Infinite Jukebox. I put that in the thing as well. So I've put 2 links in. So the second one, I think you're all going to love. So if you go to that, you can upload a song, and it will actually go through that song, picking out points that you can actually make the song infinite. So, like,
really?
Yeah, it works out like beats, and you can actually make the song just go forever, like in certain areas. Cool. It's insane, like, and it will be flawless. So, you know, like being able to say, like, I went on there and I, of course, uploaded, Will Smith's, Fresh Prince Bel-Air song. And, you go through and it will then create these like areas saying, oh, yeah, we can actually, if you link to here, you can then play that bit constantly, and it will sound flawless. It's amazing. It's so sad, but amazing.
This is kind of
awesome. The website kind of looks like a...
I was just gonna say, when I see how like amazing people are, it just really depresses me. Like, but yeah, that looks.
They got too much time on their hands, or they're just geniuses.
What were you going to say about the website?
Yeah, it's a really cool looking website as well, because it's not like one of these new kind of, how like every website looks the same these days. Design. It looks like something from 10 years ago that some genius has put together with no design input whatsoever, and it's awesome.
GeoCities or something, or MySpace,
absolutely. No, it's cool, man. I like it.
Yeah, have a little play around with it from some songs, and you will be amazed. It's addictive as well, because you'll just start playing a song and you'll play it for about an hour. I think I did that. I did it with a Counting Crows song. So
how long are the sections? Is it? Can you say I want it to be a 2-minute section or a 1-minute section or a 20-second?
So you upload the song and then it will process it, and then it will actually like create this kind of. I mean, it's probably best actually to do it. Like you'll get this like circle, and it will have like all these links, like these nodes that you can click on, and then it will like if you click on them, then it will join. It better off playing around with it. It's really cool.
I'll give that a go. It looks pretty cool.
It's very cool. But that's actually, I'm linked out now. Those are all the links that I've kind of curated over the last couple of weeks.
Well, I was going to ask Fraser, I don't know if I've dreamt this or what, but obviously our guest last week was talking about Gulp. And I'm sure you tweeted about you'd use Gulp or something.
I did, yeah. That's what I was saying at the start of the show. I was trying to get it working so I could have a similar experience to CodeKit on my PC environment. So it was a bit, I say it was a slow afternoon. It's never a slow afternoon, but like with it being Friday afternoon, it was kind of, I wanted to do this. It's something
the brain's dead
for a while.
The brain is fried.
So my kind of little plan for myself was to set up Node and then Gulp on one of our dev servers, and then we're running quite an old version of Ubuntu on our dev server, so it's 11.10 that we're running, which is quite ancient. So it was quite a struggle just to get Node installed in the first place, just so I could install Gulp with the Node package manager.
Yeah,
we had to go through all these different processes. We had to update the what was it?
I would have given up.
We had to update the package files so we could point to the correct thing, so we could actually get it. And it took about an hour and a half until we actually had Node installed. Well, it took about an hour and a half before we got to a stage where we could install it. Then we had to unpack it, and
sometimes it's just easier to update the distro, innit? It's like,
it really is. That's the thing, because it was kind of too scary. Because I guess you from working there, you know what it's like. Like there's loads and loads of sites on there. So if we update the distro, it'll just it will kill everything. There's nothing there's everything that could possibly go wrong will go wrong.
Yeah.
So I got that working, and then installed Gulp, and that was fairly painless, and got Gulp working. And from there I went to actually set it up on a project, and I was getting all these error messages when I was actually starting Gulp. So I'd set set all the dependencies and stuff that I wanted to pull in, and everything that I wanted to actually get running. And every time I started Gulp, it was coming up with every time I tried to get Gulp running on the local project, it was coming up with an error.
Solid.
Couldn't for the life of me work. Yeah, it was a really kind of, I've written a little blog about it, but it was basically, it was saying that it couldn't, it didn't have the permissions to write to my, I can't even remember which file it was. It was my something JSON file anyway. It didn't have the permissions to write to it, and then it transpired that was because it couldn't change the ownership of it to the user that it needed. To the user. And long story short, it took like another 2 hours or something to actually work out why it was doing this. And the reason it was doing this, because the site was running off a NAS which we'd mounted, which was running NTFS, and it couldn't change the owner on the NTFS drive, so I had to then move it to the main drive. Solid. And got it working that way. So that was about 5 o'clock. So like about 5 o'clock, 5:15, I actually got to a stage where I was saving my JavaScript, and it was uglifying it and spitting out a minified version. It was doing the same with my CSS as well, so it's good. And I need to tweak or play around with the auto reload, because I hadn't got that working by the time I left, but it kind of, it was good. And it's kind of nice to, I always like getting through those things where you sit there and you're really, really struggling, and then all of a sudden it all comes to light and starts doing what it needs to do. But it's been good. I'm not going to bother trying to get on Grunt, because I think Gulp does everything that I need it to. So I'm gonna.
Gulp's the hip new thing, you know.
I know, that's
the new streams.
It's what all the kids are using these days.
Yeah. Don't worry, a week later you'll find something else. I'm trying to think of something, another one begin with G.
Yeah, if anyone brings anything out, I'm going to literally find them and I'm going to
kick their ass.
Yeah. Don't bring anything out cooler than that.
Very cool.
How about you, Mickey? What have you found anything cool this week?
You know what? I think I'm left out now, but I really haven't.
When are you going back to work? Not work. Obviously, you're at work. Yeah. When are you going back to uni?
So I have another 3 weeks. I think I'm back in.
Wow.
So that's pretty terrifying. It
I
really
thought
has.
You start in September.
It's the end of September, so I think it's.
I don't know if it's 3 weeks.
You know what? It might be 2 weeks.
It's
might
like,
be 2 weeks. I think it's the 28th or something. So
boom.
Yeah, it's probably more like 2 weeks.
It's an easy life being a student, isn't it? All this time off you get
it. Yeah, you know, exactly. They're loving it and you're hating it.
So much spare time. It's crazy. But no, that will be awesome. I am kind of petrified with the baby and stuff. But I'm looking forward to get back on that. I think the modules I picked are like C++. And
that'd be cool.
I think I've done another one on like it's like graphics based, like for computer games and stuff. So
wow, okay.
Don't quote me on that.
Unreal and stuff like that, you know.
Yeah, but that'll be good because I don't feel like I've been learning too much new stuff recently.
And you've been so
honest.
lazy as well. You've had a baby. You've had work. I mean, God.
You know what? Honestly, like when you do have a baby, like it is so hard to spend time and learn other stuff. I'd love to have a look at. Well, we just talking about Gulp, and that kind of stuff. But it's just so little time, and maybe the freelance stuff was a bit of a mistake as well. But at least I've got to play with WebSockets, so that's pretty. That's
what I was just about to say. At least you have been able to kind of look at something pretty damn cool.
Yeah, that has been very cool. Yeah.
And how is little Toby?
Little Toby, he's doing really well.
T-Bone is his name.
T-Bone. He's
not Teabag, T-Bone.
He's really, really good. But like I say, like everything kind of fades into insignificance. Like when you have a baby, you want to get home from work and you just want to play with the baby. So it's all good. I really can't complain. But I do feel like I'm falling a bit behind on the dev side of things. But to be expected, and that's life. So just get on with it.
That's what they all say. Yeah. That's life.
Yeah. But you guys got any other links or anything? Or
I haven't actually got anything else. Like,
I've got nothing.
I kind of like just literally just shouted it all out, blurted it all out at the beginning, which is kind of sad.
It was a good little ramble, to be fair.
Good little ramble, eh? Is there anything else I can talk about that?
I did see Lou, by the way, the other day.
Did you?
Let all the listeners know he is alive
thanks,
and well.
Man. What was he up to?
He was down in Birchington seeing a man about a dog.
Sweet.
Yeah, so he popped in.
Did he get the dog, or
he might have?
Or was that a euphemism for him buying lots and lots of illegal drugs?
You know it. Oh no, he's not like that. But yeah,
it was kind of like mortgage business, I think.
Yeah.
But he said he might be back on at some point. So
sweet.
Good.
That's awesome.
I hope he'll be back on.
Busy person.
Yeah, absolutely.
Busy. I like the fact you're trying to do like a little bit of kind of a stall for someone to actually think of something.
I'm trying to think if I have anything more productive to say. I mean, I've got my quiz questions, but I don't know where they've gone. I can probably remember a couple of them.
We could always say that. I mean,
well, I tell you what, they're not questions. I will just show you a couple of things that I did prepare for the quiz on that infamous night where I thought Abby was going into labour and she wasn't.
She wasn't, but then she did eventually, and that's when Toby's around.
Yeah,
exactly. No, just.
I guess so. I think I told you about this here, but I'm not Fraser. But yeah, Fraser, have you heard of workers with JS with JavaScript?
No.
So basically, it just allows you can literally with the syntax, I think it's like new worker, and then you pass in a JavaScript file. So it might be like cheese.js.
Okay.
And what it does is it just means that there's no like locking in the code, so it will start doing that script. But it won't
fire it off in another process.
Yeah, exactly. And I just started playing around with it, and I was just doing simple things like doing a count or something in the background. Yeah. So I was thinking it'd be quite cool with something like Google Analytics, which I guess you both have pretty had experience where it just takes ages to do something, and obviously a lot of people used to complain about like ads on websites where you get that blocking, locking, and the rest of the site doesn't load, especially if they got them at the top of the file. But yeah, you can use that JS worker to do something asynchronously in the background.
That's right. And that's just a native part of JavaScript, is it?
Yeah, absolutely. Oh. Yeah.
Well, so is it ES6 or is it actually been released yet? Like, I don't know. They always seem to.
You know what? I'm not 100% sure. I was using it in Chrome, which always
it's the latest and greatest.
Yeah, exactly. But I don't know. But it's pretty cool. Like I said, I can't think of too many uses that I would use it for at the moment, but the thing that did spring to mind was something like Google Analytics, where I have noticed before, and I think as well, like when you're loading in fonts as well.
Well, the thing is, it's like we're doing so much stuff on the client now. Processor intensive stuff. Having these background workers is probably required, like some of the processing we do.
Yeah.
Oh, actually, I do have. Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
one last thing, actually. This week, what we were doing. So this week, at the end of the week, we upgraded from PHP 5. Well, we're still doing it. PHP 5.3, the latest, because PHP 5.3 was end of life now. It went EOL. We were thinking, we got to update, and we update to PHP 5.5. And at work, we use a Symfony 1 application. Well, we have an old Symfony 1 application that had some issues with upgrading to PHP 5.5 because I don't know if you've seen it before. Preg replace, and you could do the E modifier, and what that actually does is kind of a hack that allows you then to call a function. So every time it finds it replaces its calls this function, but it does it using a string. It's not really a hack because it worked. It was what, you have to do it in PHP, old PHPs before you had first class functions and stuff. So, you do this and stuff. Well, yeah, I suppose, before you had first class functions and stuff, you have to use it. But it's really, really bad because it is quite safe security, kind of because it is executing code and functions, based on regular expression input. So if you've got user input, you can do some funky stuff. So they deprecated it. So Symfony 1, when you do it, the kind of, S is the bed. It kind of just goes, I'm using it a lot and stuff. So a couple of good actually Stack Overflow comments actually found and fixed that. I mean, we thought this was going to be the big daddy. It was going to be the worst thing to have to do, dealing with the Symfony 1 stuff. And that's why it's kind of been put off. But turns out the Symfony 1 stuff I was able to get done pretty quick. And then the person I was working with, he had problems with Symfony 2 stuff. And some weird things in PHP 5.5, like the serialization is a little bit different now. Like the way it kind of is more clever with serialization, that it actually, when when you say like serialize and you pass it in an object or something and it will give you a string.
Yeah.
It uses referencing and stuff instead. So it says, I'm not going to do this again. I'm going to have a reference to another thing and stuff like that. So it's more kind of considerate about your memory. It uses more references than it does, just more copies. But that caused quite a few random problems. And another one is the actual referencing. Like it seems to do some weird referencing things. So it's always nice where you think, it'd be easy to upgrade, your PHP, implementation and stuff. And I was one of these guys, I'll just upgrade, let's just deal with the bugs. But you realize the bugs and you're like, wow. And it's like when the tests are failing, and sometimes it's the test, it's only the test that's having the bug. And you're like, well, it's the test having the bug. But we need the test because the test tells us if the code, in production works. And so that's been an interesting experience. But hopefully what we do is upgrade to PHP 5.5, get that all down and working, and then we'll be able to slowly move up to 5.6. Because one of the things we did have a problem was because initially, because we use Puppet at work, but initially they were compiling PHP 5.3 from source. And adding in their stuff, APC, the alternative PHP cache, and the stuff like that. That was cool and everything. But the alternative PHP cache actually was there was a beta release for it in PHP 5.4, but then it got deprecated for opcache in 5.5. The the inbuilt opcache and stuff. So we it got rid of that, which was great, because then you just have it inbuilt and everything. But one of the things that they use still is there's like a user level cache where you literally give it a key and then it'll return a value for you. So nice quick cache like memcache type thing. And that actually was when you remove memcache, it's not actually included in not-cache. So luckily, Joe Watkins, a good friend of our show, he made something called it's called APCU, which is the Apache, not Apache, alternative PHP cache user land thing, and it literally strips out all the other stuff, all the caching stuff, and all the the caching stuff, opcache stuff, and just gives you just what the user cache is. So that was great, and we actually started using .debs packages, so you can compile from source, but because it's good compiling for source in the sense of if you've got a big company, you're kind of scared of using other people's packages because you're like, well, they've compiled it. What have they done? Unless it's like Debian or something like that, you don't know for sure. But .deb seems like a very reputable, source, and a lot of good companies are using it. So we used that instead, and they provided the packages and stuff, and it was awesome. It's similar to like Remy in CentOS world where you can just use them instead. But I was looking actually at compiling PHP from source and creating your own .deb files, like your own packages and stuff. Yeah. And it doesn't seem that hard actually. You just kind of, it's really weird. Like you compile it, but when you actually do the make install, all it does is log what things change in the actual app, in your operating system. So then it can obviously go and remove them again afterwards. So it's quite cool, but that's another random tangent. But yeah, so upgrading stuff. It's fun and interesting.
Don't do it.
Well, scary as hell.
It's horrible because you don't want to do it, but you kind of have to sometimes, and it's good too. And all we want, is just the short array syntax. I mean, isn't that the hipsters? But no, so it's been interesting.
Very cool. Well, the other couple of things I was going to mention, and I won't do it in quiz format, but basically, I'm sure you guys have used this before, and I've kind of seen it, but never really played with it. But have you guys used like the emulation tool in Chrome?
Yes, it's amazing.
What's that?
It's very cool, isn't it? I've not used it really much before.
It is really cool, yeah.
Basically, just what it says on the tin, really. It just allows you to emulate devices, so your browser suddenly becomes the same size as, you can set like i5 or whatever you want to do. and it will emulate the device. I think you could even like set like accelerometer settings.
Oh,
and all that
wow!
kind of
So
stuff.
does it just? It doesn't just change like the width, the screen size. It also like says. I suppose it can't use the same engine settings. I don't know if it goes that low.
I don't think it does. No, but
That's pretty cool.
But it is really cool, though, isn't it?
Yeah, I found it really useful. I had to use it the other day, and thought it was really cool. So, yeah, that's worth checking out. And
well, it saved me a load of space on hard drive because I've only got 128 gig
SSD though.
I think so.
So jealous.
SSD. I had Xcode just for the purpose of using it for the iPhone and the iPad emulator, and I've got rid of that now. So it's really cool not having to have that. And so I've reclaimed like 3 gig of space on my computer, so I can now put stuff on there again.
Yeah, and the other thing I was just going to say really was I use so little of the developer tools in Chrome. Like, I use the console a lot to work out what's going on a lot of time. But the other thing I started looking at, especially doing a lot of JavaScript work for the Magento site, was using event listeners to kind of like inspect the DOM at certain points. And so I started basically I started adding things for like on like click event, and it literally it'll pause every time that a click event is triggered, so you can inspect the DOM and you can start skipping through and see what's happening at each stage of your JavaScript file.
That's cool.
Quite painful, but a very useful tool if you've got something that's going wrong and you're not sure what's happening. Especially with something like Magento, where you've got countless amounts of JavaScript files that you didn't write, and you got lots of conflicts and that kind of stuff.
That is a really good tool, actually, for JavaScript in particular with these third parties, because you think how much gets loaded on the page. That can conflict with what you're doing. Yeah,
exactly. And again, it's the kind of thing I do. Like if I'm programming in Java, I'll use those kind of tools. I'll set breakpoints a lot. I never do it in PHP or JavaScript.
You should do it now with PHP debugger. We've got now C, thingy. Joe Watkins made that and Xdebug beforehand.
That's true. Very true.
Naughty.
Slap my wrist. Yeah, that's only weird. But anyway, on that note, unless there's anything else you guys want to say, I think we have gotten to the hour mark. Is there anything else?
No, that's it from me.
From me as well.
Enough.
Yeah.
I'm sorry I had to disappear a couple of times during that as
That's
well.
all right.
It's not. Yeah, I'm in a public room in the house, and there was a bit of people coming back and forth getting stuff. So I had to kind of withdraw myself, so there wasn't a lot of background noise. But yeah,
no worries. Cool.
All right, guys.
Thanks for listening, guys. And we will be back same time next week. Thanks for listening.
Bye.
See ya.
You've been listening to 3 Devs and a Maybe. You can contact us at contact@3devsandamaybe.com or follow us on Twitter at 3 Devs and a Maybe.